Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
There's definitely a lot of shared sentiments of disappointment that he will not be visiting British Columbia.
BC Indigenous leaders wonder why the Pope is not coming to this province as part of his Canadian visit. Also,
we are taking the diverse stories of British Columbians and Indigenous people out of the shadows and into the light.
A full renewal. The Royal BC Museum is set to be rebuilt over 7 years and at a huge cost. And
I think I've been able to work with everyone.
Running unopposed. We look at the uncompetitive mayor's race in Burnaby.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Indigenous leaders in BC call it a missed opportunity. When the Pope visits Canada this summer, he is not scheduled to come to this province. As Michelle Gassoub explains, it was the discovery in Kamloops that triggered a wave of investigations.
The Pope will be in Canada from July 24th to 29th, his first visit since meeting with residential school survivors at the Vatican. But with no BC leg of the trip, in this province there's disappointment and frustration.
I do see as a missed opportunity to come to the Kamloops, ground zero, and hear directly from the survivors, the intergenerational survivors, and offer more words of apology.
It was in Kamloops almost exactly a year ago that the remains of at least 200 potential burial sites were found on the site of a former residential school, forcing a reckoning and triggering investigations on other former school sites across Canada.
He hasn't acknowledged invitations to really come and meet with us and to really walk on those meaningful steps moving forward.
The Pope will visit Quebec City, Edmonton, and Iqaluit. The Vatican says the visit is limited to 3 cities because of the Pope's health. Pope Francis is 85 and suffers from sciatica, which limits his mobility. He recently canceled a scheduled trip to Lebanon. Still, there's disappointment. BC wasn't prioritized.
45 minutes on a plane from Edmonton to Kamloops, it's important that he had it on his itinerary because it's a more memorial site. It's a mourning site.
The federal government is welcoming the trip, but leaving all planning to the Vatican.
In terms of the selection of sites, that will be a decision that the Vatican will make, along with consultations with the stakeholders they're speaking with. Of course, the federal government will be there to support his visit in a number of different ways, but we will not be the decider about where those visits will occur.
There are 139 sites of former residential schools across Canada. Most of them were run by the Catholic Church. Pope Francis is expected to visit some of them and repeat the apology he gave when visited by Indigenous leaders in Rome. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police are looking for witnesses to a seemingly random attack. Security video shows a man knocking a 15-year-old boy to the ground inside Pacific Centre Mall. Take a look. Police say this happened last Saturday just before noon. You can see he leg sweeps him. They want to speak to anyone who saw the suspect around that time or heard any interactions between the two. Police say Faisal Abu Bakr has been charged with assault. Police say the teen did not suffer any serious physical injuries. If you're gassing up ahead of the weekend, the price at the pumps may have you reconsidering going out at all.
Taking trips with this price of gas, you really have to limit yourself.
I have to decide whether I should buy gasoline or food.
It doesn't sound like there's any positive news coming for us for this summer, so I am looking at getting onto a bike.
Experts say it's only going to get worse. Market watcher Gas Wizard predicts several records could be broken this weekend across the country. Vancouver may hit a whopping $2.27 a litre. And the upcoming long weekend is expected to push those prices even higher. The Premier gathered with the chiefs of Victoria's Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations today to announce a massive change at the Royal BC Museum. The CBC's Anna van der Zwan has more on plans to modernize that facility and the cost.
I'm standing here in front of the famous woolly mammoth exhibit at the Royal BC Museum. Now, Premier John Horgan made what he called a mammoth announcement. It's a new state-of-the-art Royal British Columbia Museum here in Victoria, one that's going to take 8 years and cost $789 million to build, something the province says is the largest cultural investment in BC's history.
We are proud to announce that we are going to be building an $800 million safer, new, inclusive, accessible, modern museum for the people of British Columbia on this location going forward.
Now, the museum has had a turbulent past year. Some staff have come forward alleging racism within the staff. Its CEO has resigned, and its third-floor galleries, which hold the popular Old Town and the First Peoples exhibit, have closed for a remodeling. On top of that, we've learned the building needs significant seismic upgrades to help protect its 7 million artifacts. The Premier said this new museum will include all of these upgrades and will be fully accessible for people with disabilities. It'll also be built with mass timber. Tourism Minister Melanie Mark gave an emotional speech about how the museum will work with the local Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations in the remodeling, and how it's going to tell stories and histories of First Nations people across British Columbia.
Through our pledge made today, we will honor the land and the people of the Lekwungen, and together we will build a museum truly for everyone.
And the new CEO, Alicia Dubois, said that while the museum site is closing for 8 years starting later this year, a traveling exhibition program will take place across BC, and they'll be creating new collections to complement their existing ones. She also said the museum is currently working with 15 different communities to repatriate items that belong to those communities. And the CEO has said repatriation has been an important aspect to the museum for a number of decades. Adam Vanderswan, CBC News, Victoria.
We talk a lot about local politics in Vancouver and Surrey, BC's two largest cities. But what about the third largest? Can you name it? Burnaby. Justin McElroy tells us why things have been so quiet there recently and why, come October 15th, only one person may be running for mayor.
We are in booming Burnaby, the third largest municipality in British Columbia, one of the most diverse areas of BC in terms of population, and one where an increasing number of people are living in apartments. Now, 4 years ago, that became a big election issue, primarily because of apartments in this area in Metrotown, older ones being torn down for taller ones, but the residents in the old apartments not being given protections for when they're evicted. That led to a shocking result. Mayor Derek Corrigan, in power for decades, losing to Mike Hurley, who had no political experience whatsoever. Now, 4 years later, there's no one challenging Hurley at this point. And a big reason why, says Hurley, is his collegial attitude around the council table.
Well, I think I've been able to work with everyone, and that's kind of it's kind of how I operate. I try to include everyone in all the decisions. You know, we don't agree on everything, but we certainly seem to be able to work through most things.
It's why neither of the two political parties at the council table say they will put a candidate against Hurley. Of course, there could be people outside of the council table that want to run against him. There's issues of affordability and safety in Burnaby, just like the rest of Metro Vancouver. But most of the time in this municipality, the election for mayor is not really competitive. It may prove that way again in 2022. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Burnaby.
A $10,000 reward is being offered for information in the grisly killing and dismembering of two cougar kittens on Vancouver Island. Last week, BC conservation officers said they found the cubs, just a few months old, shot and killed near Hill 60 Forest Service Road in the Cowichan Valley. At least one of the animals had been beheaded. Both of their paws had been removed. The group Fur Bearers says its initial $1,000 reward for information has now grown to $10,000 after being flooded with donations from British Columbians wanting to find whoever did that. The charity says it's the highest reward it's ever issued in its 70-year history. He's been a hit with fans and helped square the squad after a tough season. Canucks coach Bruce Boudreau is going to remain the team's bench boss for another year. The Canucks have announced Boudreau will return for next season. The 67-year-old joined the Canucks last December following a dismal start, to say the least. But he guided them to a 32-15-10 record after taking over with a winning percentage that would have slotted the team in second place in the Pacific Division had it been for the whole season.
We're back where we started and trying to build the best team we can for the Canucks. And I really believe that the way the last 56 games, we were a playoff team, and hopefully we can leave off or start off where we left off and make it the dream come true for next year.
Boudreau, who's from Toronto, is just one victory shy of 600 career wins. That would make him the 22nd coach in league history to reach that mark. Another emotional day in the trial of Headley frontman Jacob Hoggard. As Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains, a judge told Hoggard's defense team they made an error with evidence. And a warning, this story contains some graphic details.
The second week of Jacob Hoggard's sexual assault trial wrapped up with an admission of a mistake. On Wednesday, the jury was played 2 video clips of CBC interviews presented as being with Hoggard's accuser from Ottawa. Today, the judge told the jury this video was a mistake by the defense team. The speaker is not the complainant. The clip has nothing to do with our trial. It was played to the complainant by mistake.
Well, you never, as a defense lawyer, want to have a judge tell a jury the morning of that there's maybe been an error or an oversight. That's something that you worry stays with the jury a little bit too long.
The person in the video says she was recovering from a major surgery. Hoggard's defense team suggested it was proof the Ottawa woman was constantly changing her story. At the time it was played, it made the accuser break down in tears. She also got emotional today when the Crown prosecutor asked her how she felt, hearing a recorded phone call between her and Hoggard. Very, very upset to hear him talk so calmly about something that was so horrific to me. Hoggard's lawyer zeroed in on text messages between Hoggard and the woman. Defense, he also told you, I only meant to treat you how you seemed comfortable with. Complainant 2, correct. And your response was, no worries, maybe just overreacting, it's all good. Complainant 2, correct. Prosecution also brought up other witnesses, the Ottawa woman's friends and roommates. They said that following the alleged incident, she seemed distraught, like a changed person, that she was limping and had a hard time sitting down. The prosecution wraps up its arguments on Monday. Jacob Hoggard is expected to take the stand later this month. He denies all the charges against him. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
The ice jam that flooded an area south of Great Slave Lake has broken up. But ice both up and downstream means the risk remains. The water in the Hay River region has lowered, but the evacuation order is still in place. Damage is severe. And with an overwhelmed sewer system and power cut to the water treatment plant there, any residents that remain are under a boil water advisory. In northern Alberta, evacuees from several First Nations remain displaced. And in Manitoba, local states of emergency have been declared in 26 communities, with flood watches issued for southern and central areas of the province. Amy Bell joins us now with the forecast for this evening. A rather different story here, and especially in parts of BC, with more snow in May.
Yes, middle of May, might add.
Yeah, if you're counting, sure.
Yeah, so the mountain passes, those higher elevations of several of our provincial highways. So taking a look at the Coquihalla, we saw quite a bit of snow over the last 24 hours. Yes, very cold and wet and slippery conditions, and they will persist a little bit. So certainly not completely unheard of in May, but not what we're usually expecting. And so it caught a lot of travelers by surprise. For us locally, what we're seeing is more wet weather. Unfortunately, and still trending on the cooler side, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But bear with me, it's not a bad thing. That means we're not seeing that rapid melt of the ice pack just yet, and we are also seeing a lot of greenery. So let's focus on that, shall we? For the northern half of the province, you're escaping this. You're looking gorgeous for sort of Dease Lake area. And then for much of the province in the south, it's very unsettled. So we'll see some sunshine, some breaks of blue, some showers, and then some rain, but definitely trending towards the cooler side. As you can see, Tofino, just some showers, but heavier rain for the Comox area. Periods of rain tomorrow for Victoria and just a high around 13. Unsettled for Whistler, but that's a good thing. It means you will see some sunshine and fairly wet and a heavier cloud as you head into the Fraser Valley. But yeah, as I said, once you get out of the sort of the southern regions of the province, you do start to see things brightening up a little bit. So Prince Rupert, we'll see some showers in the morning and then some sunshine. As I said, Dease Lake just showing off with sunshine and a high of 12. Prince George, 14. Williams Lake, a lovely mix of sun and cloud with a high of 15. As you head into the Kootenays, you do still have a chance of a couple of showers, but also some sunshine, and also a bit unsettled for areas such as Kelowna, but you'll see that temperature inching up to about 17 or 18 degrees. So for us, it is going to stay a little bit wet and a little bit cooler for the foreseeable future. So tomorrow we will start off with some showers. They'll actually redevelop overnight, and then we'll see them lingering tomorrow morning. I think tomorrow afternoon is when we'll get the best shot of drying out, and we'll just be left with a chance of showers. But again, we could see some blue sky. Tomorrow or Sunday, the next system arrives, bringing heavier and steadier rain. We'll taper off to showers for Monday and Tuesday, and then we'll get back into some steadier rain for Wednesday.
Really
That's
had
the
to go
best
all
I
out
can
with those
do.
graphics, eh? Well, look at that. Man.
That's lighter, then it's heavier rain,
Yeah, if
then
you look
lighter.
closely,
So
yes.
there's quite a difference.
We'll take your word for it.
All right.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
May is Asian Heritage Month, a chance for communities across this country to celebrate Asian culture and community. And two Vancouver comics are here to share their unique perspective in a new special called MSG Comedy. And this came together very quickly. Maddie Vu and Tin Lorica, thank you for being here. How quickly did it take for you to get MSG Comedy off the ground?
We basically got an email from Cold Tea Restaurant last week that they wanted to do a comedy show that would highlight Asian Heritage Month, and they wanted it next week. So we have 2 weeks to try to get an audience.
What's it been like to have to work on that so quickly?
I mean, it's good to have a venue, first of all. There's not a lot of comedy venues in Vancouver right now, so it was really cool for like an Asian-owned business to ask Asian producers to put up a stand-up show there.
And how has it been throughout the pandemic? We know that there have been challenges with performers across the country, really, in all kinds of venues. What has it been like having to grind through, if you did, during the pandemic?
I mean, like, stand-up is probably like the only performing art. Like, we really need an audience to like do our thing. We could only do Zoom for so long. So like screaming into a camera, our webcam is like, it's weird. We need our venues.
Yeah, I didn't like the idea of the Zoom. It was just like, screaming into our computers. It's like, it's not a podcast. I don't want to do a podcast. I want to interact with people. I love interacting with the audience and just vibing with them. So just happy to be able to do that again.
What is it? Have you had a chance to be back up on stage since restrictions were lifted? And if so, what's that been like?
It was definitely, I was really rusty the first time I got back on stage. It was like a year when I came back on stage. It wasn't good, but we're like picking up momentum again.
Yeah, it's just getting comfortable chatting with and seeing people. Just seeing people again was like, and also now you're all looking at me and I'm uncomfortable with this. Forgot what this is like.
Center of attention without a screen. Yeah. It being Asian Heritage Month, what common themes, if there are any, between your experiences as Asian people, or connections do you have in the comedy?
I mean, like, Asian, like the word itself, like, Asia's huge. There's so many types of Asians, you know? And we're kind of just like showcasing the diversity of Asians. Like, there's different types of Asians. There's smart Asians, dumb Asians, Asians with weird bangs, you know?
And Asians with cool pins on their jackets.
Cool CBC. Having friends in the CBC who give you pins is nice.
In terms of themes, what do you want people to take away from the show when they go and see it?
I think we've passed that barrier of like just stereotypical Asian jokes. We're like, let's move on. And now we're just two Asian people. We have very different experiences. And now we can tell people about those and not think about the dumb racist stuff that they heard before.
And it'll be exciting to have an audience there. Maddie Vu, Tin Lorica, thanks so much and all the best.
Thanks for having me.
Latin music has become so popular it has its own Grammys and Grammy categories. But despite Canada's fast-growing Latin music scene, there's no official recognition here. As Eli Glasner reports, some Canadian artists, including BC's own Grammy winner Alex Cuba, are fighting to change that.
It starts with the beat, then the lyrics and the melody. The singer is Montreal's best-kept secret, Cruzito, the man behind the keyboard, Mystico, his producer. With a mix of languages and ideas, the song takes shape.
Como un vagabundo.
Okay, let's go.
Déjate la ropa en el suelo. En mi cuello tu lápiz labial. For Cruzito, real name Eddie Cruz, who first started singing in church, the passion comes easily.
I've always been involved in ballads and R&B and romantic music.
As the duo's music spread on Latin music forums, they were discovered by some of the biggest names in reggaeton, a music that mixes Latin, hip-hop, and Caribbean styles. Cruzito was only 17 when they were invited to go to Puerto Rico and work with a major manager. What was that like?
I'm like, okay, I have to take a decision. Do I, keep studying, or do I, choose this music path?
Needless to say, they stuck with it. Part of what makes their music stand out is where they come from.
I believe that there is a certain element or a recipe that Canadians, or people even from Montreal, because we are francophone, so we have that DNA that has so many musical references.
The CEO of Montreal's Joyride Records decided to branch into Latin music after hearing Cruzito. He says the talent is here in Canada, but there's little industry support.
I think we're going to have to create the market and the way to, export our music and even, really market it here in Canada, because we have the small player syndrome, right?
Mystico has another way of seeing it.
You know what I think is that nobody knocked on the door yet, and nobody knocked the door up.
I love that. I love that. That's the right attitude. That means eyes are where they need to be.
Voy a retomar la fe, si es lo que debo hacer, por ti todo lo haré, porque tú me haces falta. In the wide world of Latin music, Alex Cuba has a sound quite different than Cruzito's, but he shares that sense of frustration. A Cuban immigrant based now in BC, he recently won a Grammy for Best Latin Pop Album. Now he's using his skills to produce other Latin artists coming to Canada. But when it comes to the Junos category, there's heavy metal, there's jazz vocal, there's alternative, gospel, roots, reggae. Where's Latin?
Exactly. And now you have, I'm sorry to put myself in the picture, but now you have a Grammy winner here, right here, from Latin music in Canada. I hope that it was the excuse they needed,
If you look at any kind of global chart, you will see that there's music in English, which of course is the music that's most consumed. And second, there's music in Spanish.
The VP of Latin music at Billboard says the success of this massive earworm was a wake-up call.
It's still the most viewed video ever on YouTube, by the way. So this opened the eyes of the industry.
At the Junos, without a Latin music category, Alex Cuba is competing in the global music section. He says when he asked why there isn't a Latin category, he was told,
it was clear, the response was, we don't have enough music produced in Canada, enough Latin music produced in Canada yet to form a category. There have to be like 20 albums.
CBC News asked the Junos why there's no Latin music category in Canada. In response, the Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences said it continues to evaluate their awards categories each and every year. But the Junos say they've created 5 new categories in the last 2 years. Recognition from the Junos stage would send a signal to the growing chorus of Latin voices.
Number one, it's going to make them feel that there is a space for them. It's going to give them hope. And that hope can make this country, and any country in the world, when people are hopeful, things become beautiful.
Eli Glasner, CBC News, Montreal.
And a reminder, CBC is hosting the Juno Awards. It'll be airing on Sunday night, hosted by Simu Liu. You can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC. Our next local news is right here at 11 o'clock after hockey and the National, tonight with Isabel Regem. Good night, enjoy the weekend, stay safe.